Aloha, it's Dave Lawrence. We're at Hungry Ear Records in Kailua, and it's a very special time because a guy I've been anxious to speak to since I started doing radio here in 2002, I'm finally getting my chance to talk to, and that's another Philly area boy gone Hawaii, and that's Todd Rundgren. Aloha and mahalo for taking a moment for me, Brother Todd.
Thank you so much. My pleasure. You
first came to the islands when, and why did you end up on the Garden Isle?
I first started coming to Kauai, actually, in the mid-'70s. It wasn't that I had a particular fascination with Hawaii, but there was, I don't know, I guess there was some sort of like a buzz about it being a good place to get away. There was some sort of a monastery, Eastern religion kind of thing that may still be there, I'm not sure. But a friend of mine suggested that I go to Kauai, and I was looking to get away. I had an evil girlfriend. I wanted to leave far away for a while.
It's a good place to do it.
So I came to Kauai the first time, and I was, just by myself. And I took a shine to the place and then just kept coming back over the years. And right after, about 8 months after Aniki went to Kauai with some friends of mine and thought if I was ever going to find affordable property on Kauai, that'd be the time. I just looked at a few places and then I found a place that I fell in love with. It took me a couple years to get it, but then once I did, I decided that was my destiny, and now I live officially on Kauai.
Full-time resident?
Full-time, yes.
That's awesome. Well, we're really lucky, and it's great that in some ways Aniki was a catalyst for some good things.
Well, it's actually I didn't come here thinking, I'm just going to come here and work my ass off. I thought I'm going to come here and goof off, which is what I try to do. I try and just really enjoy my life and not try and succumb to what I guess initially was a feeling of guilt. Of like you come here and you leave everybody else to slave away on the mainland, and then you think, well, to make up for it, I have to work really hard.
Leave them to deal with the real world.
Yeah, and those poor suckers. And then I finally realized that I have to make time to enjoy being here and not constantly not bring my work home with me, in a sense.
How often are you on the other islands? How often are you over here in Honolulu or other islands in the state?
Well, I used to come to Honolulu with some regularity when my kids were going to school here. My two oldest boys both went to Mid-Pac. They played baseball for Mid-Pac. They went to the States. They both got drafted out of Mid-Pac by the majors, so means a lot to us. Manoa is a very important place for us, but not so much since they graduated. Only if I have something specific to do here, like renew my passport or get a Japanese visa or something like that.
Or record store day, I'm thinking.
Or a record store appearance, which I haven't done enough of, I have to say, in the islands. But and then I've been actually spending more time in Maui than I used to do, and that was because they started an independent league baseball team over there, the Nakoi Kaika Maui baseball team, and my oldest son played with that team last year. So I would spend a week or two at a time over in Maui just to see the baseball games.
Well, maybe someone there will end up on the Phillies and make a few of our people end up on the Phillies,
Well, I heard that the league was going to expand actually to Oahu. They were going to add another Hawaiian team because when teams come to the mainland, it's so far, it's such a long trip, just to play one island. So I know they were trying to start some other teams here. I don't know if they'll succeed, but.
So your Oahu visits, first, you're back because of Record Store Day, and I'm curious, you're dropping a new record, Todd Rundgren's Johnson. You're doing it in this fashion where you're supporting Record Store Day and you're also supporting indie record stores, and you have like a 2-month period, right, where the record will only be available there. What do you see? We're living in this world, it seems like records are almost free at this point, and you have been an innovator and on the cutting edge in so many different times of your life. Where do you see records going with the evolution of the cloud listening system? And just, I don't know if you can just kind of summarize where you see things going, and are they ever going to be able to be sold anymore after a certain point?
Well, music technically is a service. But when we figured out how to record it and put it on pieces of plastic, then it became a product. But it was something that, in most of the history of music, you had to actually perform it to get paid for it. You had to go out and play, and you didn't have this kind of artifact that you could market. And I think it's become, for a lot of artists, just an aspect of their merchandising. They sell T-shirts and they sell records, which in some ways, maybe marginalizes the music. A lot has changed over the years. People's listening habits have changed. And when I was growing up, and records were all like LPs, and there was no Walkman or anything like that, if you really wanted to experience a record in all of its glory, you went home and you sat down in the sweet spot of your, listening space, and you probably listened to the entire record all the way through.
You did have that special place to listen to it. You're right.
Exactly, and you had those special things you did before you listened to it. And then, and it's kind of like the music has left the home and following people around, and it becomes part of the background to their lives. It becomes a little more anecdotal. People are not so much downloading albums as they are songs nowadays. So things have gone back almost like a pre-LP sort of thing. But there are still the things that everybody, who lived through the, the era of the LP, that a lot of us miss. First of all, the big graphics, where you didn't need to put on 2 pairs of glasses to read who was playing on the record. You had the nice big graphics that I think, added immeasurably to the experience. You could also use that graphical thing to do those other preparatory things on before you listen to the record.
Good with the Pocololo, I guess.
Yeah, a little bit of that, yeah, I guess. But, a nice big square foot to work on.
And the art was a lot cooler, as you sort of said.
Well, that's it. You realize that you have a greater space to fill up. You could make something that was as much of a graphic expression as it was a musical expression. And the problem is, when everything shrunk down to what is essentially the quarter of the size of an LP, you could go to all this trouble to make a graphic, and then the details are just essentially lost.
On that same point, the space filling up thing, don't you think that the fact that the CDs could hold almost 80 minutes of music was almost like a killer, because the record was so much shorter, and then people started putting just a bunch of junk on there to fill out the disc? What's your concept on that not being a good thing, that the discs are so long?
Well, it's not something that all artists can survive. I mean, Led Zeppelin records were like 15, 17 minutes a side, something like that, so that they would be extra loud. And by the time you get to a CD, it really doesn't matter. That whole loudness thing, everyone is equally loud. For me, speaking personally, the CD was kind of a boon, because I was always making records that were too long, that wouldn't fit on the vinyl, and it would be torture trying to master them, and they wouldn't sound as good as other records by comparison, because we'd have to roll a lot of bass off to keep the records from skipping and things like that. So I sort of welcomed the DVD in that sense, but I saw that a lot of other artists, they weren't creating enough material to fill up the additional space, as if it needed to be filled up. Right. But
we've got it. We got to fill it.
So we got to fill it. That's when they started doing huge compilations, with 20, 30 songs on them and stuff like that.
I think the compilation benefited the most from the extra space, if you ask me, because then the artist wasn't
all the best of.
Right. Yeah, the artist didn't think they had to do too much. All right, a final note before I let you go do your record store appearance, and right on, by the way, for supporting Record Store Day. We do have to touch base on our mutual area that we're from geographically, Upper Darby, Wilmington. So I got to think to myself, even though you've been here a few years, deep there in your heart, I'm wondering, are you a Pat's guy, Jim's, Lee's? In the world of cheesesteaks, is there still a favorite when you're back in Philly?
I go to Ray's on South Street myself. So
Ray's on South Street?
Was it
not Jim's with the black and white checkers?
Jim's, yeah, it's Jim's.
You do go to Jim's.
It gets too crowded, you go to Ishkabibbles across the street. But
it's Jim's with the black and white checkered.
Yeah, Jim's with the black and white. I don't bother to foray down into South Street and get in that battle. Further down than South Street. That's a real South Philadelphia kind of a thing. Yeah.
Everybody on the right side is on Jim. So a high five on that. And then final note: is it American, provolone, or Cheese Whiz?
Provolone. Gotta be provolone. Never Cheese Whiz.
Never American.
Well, American is okay, but it gets this texture when you melt it that's just kind of... I like the taste of it, but I think provolone texturally holds up the best.
He's here in the islands, but you can't take the Philly out of him.
Exactly.
I appreciate it, Brother Todd. Thank you.
And don't frickin' try to take it out, all right?